launching our podcast regarding the why AI products don't sell without proper go-to-market strategy. Thanks, Rohan, for joining in. I really appreciate your time. Uh, I did some homework. I read about Sphinx AI and what you guys doing, but those unfamiliar with artificial intelligence and Sphinx in general, in layman's terms, what does Sphinx do? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, thanks, Mick, for having me on. In terms of what Sphinx does, Sphinx is building an AI data scientist in layman's terms. We see there being a large gap in how today's foundation models, today's frontier models, think about the hard data as kind of a modality of
Mhm.
information. They're very good at understanding text. They're very good at understanding language. So whether that's natural language or like English, artificial language like Python, but where that paradigm falls apart is when you're thinking about the kind of information that lives in large scale databases, tabular data, semi structured data, time series data. And while these can be expressed as text or as like a language, quote unquote, that's not a very efficient way to represent the information contained within the tables. And so
Mhm.
Sphinx builds a layer to help models understand that type of content and then use that to then be an assistant to a data team to help them get from raw data to insights as quickly as possible.
I got it. I got it. Thanks for this introduction and description about Sphinx in general. Uh, One thing that also came into my mind when thinking about your company is that how did the idea for Sphinx AI first emerge, and what core problem were you trying to solve for the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, for myself, like I've been working on the broad problem of how do autoregressive models interact with more complex data types than just say text or pictures. I've been working on the problem for a while. I was at CSEL at MIT for some time, working on this more in the kind of medical domain where you have things like people's health records, which are quite complicated objects. They involve text, they involve data. They do have some kind of ordering, but beyond that, the structure is much more complicated than text. So this is of course back in the like LSTM days, but now with transformer based models, I think that problem still persists. Like, how does this large model with all its capacity interact with data? More acutely, prior to starting Sphinx, I was at Citadel, the hedge fund in New York, where I ran a quant research team. And, we had all these like tools come on our desk, like, like all the different coding co-pilots and different AI tools. And what we found was that, we're not software engineers. Our job was to get from data to insight very quickly.
Hmm.
And these tools just didn't help. You have to kind of know the answer ahead of time because the ability of these agents to interpret data was so poor that you would have to do that work yourself and kind of tell it, here's the correct interpretation, go write code for me. And then, of course, it would work. But at that point, you've already done the job. So we wanted something like that back then. And of course, I saw the opportunity to say, okay, like we can actually go build this. Let's go build it.
Okay, okay, sounds great. Sounds like a real quick and fascinating journey. By the way, one thing that I noticed, and this thing is common for a lot of AI startups, is that they do not need to have a really big team to run to operate. How is it in your case? How were the roles split, if I may ask so?
Yeah, of course. So look, I agree that we don't need like a massive number of software engineers at this point because the good engineers today are able to leverage AI to 10x their work output, and that's great. And we obviously look for that skill set when hiring. What I'll say is like I have a very deep belief that AI applications only succeed when people who actually deeply understand the application are building it. We've seen this in software where if you think of a company like say Windsurf, right? The founders of that company and their early staff were extremely talented software
Hmm.
engineers. And so they were able to build a product that made a lot of sense and that they could dog food themselves and was very useful. Uh, in the same vein, we are trying to build a team of some of the best data scientists, quantitative researchers
Hmm.
that we can get our hands on and have them build the product in a way that they think is reasonable and imparts their own knowledge, experience, wisdom into the tool that we can then give a quality experience to our customers with. So we're not skimping there. We are hiring on that front, but I think the output for each person is significantly higher. So in terms of roles, uh, we don't need to say like, oh, there's like a whole software team and a whole research team. Kind of
Hmm.
everyone sits together, and everyone is empowered to apply their existing domain knowledge in a research capacity to improve the product. But then also through either manual engineering skills or AI guided engineering to go and take whatever ideas they found and plug them into the product and improve the product. So we are able to run lean, but I do think that human experience is still incredibly valuable to building a product that's actually legitimately useful to your customer.
Sounds great. Sounds great. And by the way, regarding the team, I hope I didn't miss it, but it's something like up to 10 people, 15 people, up to
Oh,
20.
we're only 8 right now. Yeah.
Oh, only eight.
Yes, exactly. So we're I mean we're a seed stage company. We're growing quite fast. I think if I take the trailing rate, we're growing at like one person a week. Obviously, we're not going to do that forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're only eight. We have a little bit room more to
Hmm.
grow. But again, the way I think about it is that people are as much an investment as anything else. If you find someone incredibly talented, and their experience can add to the AI application, you should absolutely hire them, and they should contribute to the product, and that just makes everyone's life better. So that's really how we think about it.
Definitely, definitely, 100%, Rahul. By the way, when prepping to our podcasts, one thing that really caught my attention is that on your website, I noticed machine intelligence that thinks in patterns and statistics. And I'm really curious about what does that actually mean in practice for
Yes.
the
Yeah.
end users?
Absolutely. So I'll kind of give an analogy here. So
Hmm.
obviously a data type, most people are familiar with this stock ticker data, like stock prices going up and down. If I told you, take Walmart and analyze its stock
Hmm.
price, a very horrible way to do that would be I'd print out the stock price every
Hmm.
day on a big sheet of paper and give you a stack of paper with a bunch of numbers and say, please flip through these numbers and look at them and think about them and then come up with your analysis of how's the stock trending. Obviously, humans have invented things like graphs, right? You make like your
Hmm.
candlestick plot and look at it, and then you gain immense intuition in like 1 second by looking at it. We see the problem in AI today is AI is much more in that first camp than the second, right? You treat your data as text, and you're like, yeah, maybe if it's small data or easy data, you can get something out of it, but it's not really a native modality. And you may say, okay, like why don't we make the graph and feed it into a vision model? At the end of the day, that also unfortunately doesn't work that well because like AI, again, the vision models are trained on like pictures of dogs, pictures of cats. Like if you give it a scatter plot, it's not really like it's not really the right thing for it to interpret.
Yeah.
So what Sphinx is doing is we're building a representation learning layer to help turn data into tokens that a model
Hmm.
can understand. And then when the model sees those tokens, the same way that when you see a graph, you gain instant intuition on the data, our models gain instant intuition on the data and then can generate outputs that are cogently contextualized with the data. So if there's some statistical pattern, if there's some outliers, if there's some kind of anomaly in the data, Sphinx is very quick to understand that
Hmm.
intuitively and then take steps that account for that fact. And so we think our intelligence thinks in patterns rather than just thinking in text.
Well, sounds great and really helpful, Rohan. That's really helpful. And since you partially mentioned this example with Walmart and etc., let's talk more about the customers
Mhm.
who rely on Sphinx AI, and maybe let's talk about your ICP. Who is your basically ICP and target user? Data scientists, engineers, business analysts, and not only by roles, but let's say by the companies. Do you focus on enterprises, small and medium-sized businesses, or maybe also AI startups like yours?
Yeah. So our target is a data person, right? So data
Okay.
scientist, data analyst, quant research. They have many different titles, but at the end of the day, it's like a data scientist or equivalent type of role. We also kind of work with the leadership of that type of work, like a chief data officer, right?
Hmm.
People who are looking to improve the ROI of the data science being done. We're quite agnostic to what size and also to some degree what sector of company
Hmm.
we're looking at. One of the advantages of AI, and in my opinion, the strongest advantage of AI, is that you get an orthogonalization between, on one hand, what your agent does, and on the other hand, what the user who's operating the agent knows. So ideally, Sphinx provides the data expertise, the data science knowledge, but the user is providing the domain knowledge of how the company operates, right? So if we were to go to a CPG company, I don't really think I know CPG better than the data scientist or the chief data officer of that company. And so they would be able to put their inductive bias onto the model through prompting, through like build outs we can do with them. And then it customizes to their industry, right? So our core technology is the data scientist. They bring on their industry expertise, and then the two get married together nicely through our kind of interfaces so that they can progress with doing data science. So with that in mind, we don't really have like particular industries, but again, there are industries which are a lot more mature in the data space. Obviously, financial services is one of them. The tech industry itself is quite mature in terms of really thinking about data as a core asset. And there are some more legacy industries where we hope to bring about that transformation, but it's not as obvious that if we can do our data work better, there's a clear light at the end of the tunnel. So certainly, like we're starting with industries where data science is already valued.
I got it. And since you partially touched this ground, I'm really curious if you noticed any industries, any particular industries adopting things faster than some others. Like you mentioned tech sector, you mentioned pharmaceutical sector, maybe something else.
Yeah. So financial sector, super interesting for us. A lot of adoption there. And then CPG, consumer goods,
Hmm.
that's also actually been surprisingly fruitful for us.
Hmm.
Again, because these are both industries where people have a lot of data and know the data is valuable, and so we are just adding value in a way that's very familiar to them. And then of course tech as well, right? And then other industries where we're hopefully going to grow into over time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Big data rules the world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really curious about where do most of your customers first see the ROI? Speed, accuracy, design quality, something else, something extra?
Hmm. It's almost certainly initially with speed, right? So syncs, one of the things we do is we try to make sure, like, and I think all AI agents ought to do this. You can have a knob on how agentic you want it to be. So you can
Hmm.
say small steps with me, or like just go do everything. And obviously, when you say go do everything, it's harder to maintain like perfect accuracy there. So human review is important, but people start with normally the least agentic setting, at which point it just speed up, right? It's like doing something for them. They're like, oh, that's good. Let me do it again, and they keep working. And then as you build more trust in our model, and we believe we're selling something of extremely high quality, so people do generally build that trust quite quickly.
Hmm.
You can graduate from just speed ups to kind of slightly more paradigm shifts of like how you work rather than like you're doing the same thing but faster. So then we start to see gains that are just outside of just, oh, I'm like 20% faster, 30% faster, 50% faster.
I got it. I got it. Well, speed is a core factor for a lot of businesses, especially for like for tech, for CGPD. So definitely. By the way, when it comes to your team, what metrics do you use to track growth? Like maybe user activation, model accuracy, business outcomes, speed result, as we already mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, like all of the above. So
Okay.
obviously, like one of the core things is just how much work we're doing for people, right?
Uh huh.
Like, are we writing code? Is it fast? Are people using that? Like, we obviously are able to understand like in some if customers are willing to share the data with us, like how accurate we were. Like they can say like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like it didn't work on these settings, or we can even set up telemetry with them so that they can see for themselves. Like there have been a lot of instances where Sphinx was interrupted and the user had to take control, or there weren't, and that's the ideal case. It just is correct right off the bat. So really, like it's not that we have an objective sense of like is the model correct.
Mm-hmm.
In any particular circumstance. It does depend on the business context and what the user actually wants. And so we rely on the user to tell us this to a large degree, right? So beyond just like basically like, is the model fast? Is it actually writing lines of code for people? Is it solving problems for people? We interface very closely with our users to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that they're satisfied and that they see what's working. And this is always like a bit of a subtle point in that what users want us to do is not always just
Mm-hmm.
like be correct, right? Like they obviously want us to be correct, but it's also like they want us to kind of take things that they feel are not very interesting off their plates, that where they see no advantage to their own human intelligence, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
like kind of just doing something. So the more automation we can do in places like, for example, data cleaning or the parts of the job that may not be as exciting, they prefer us to go excel there. And then if it's something like building a model, where I think humans are pretty good at that already, and it doesn't take very long, it's just a little bit of mental energy. Then it's not as exciting for us to be delivering there.
I got it. I got it. One thing I also noticed when talking to various tech teams and AI startups is that further support and onboarding is really an important part of a customer's journey and helping them. And what kind of support or maybe education do you guys provide to clients new to AI copilots and data workflows?
Yeah, I mean, look, we onboard every client like
Okay.
manually. Like we'll sit with them, we'll figure out like, you know, how do you want to use it? We'll help them connect things to their data sources, to their compute, and walk them through like kind of how to operate the system.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, again, I think good agents ought to be controllable through natural language, through very intuitive interfaces. And so once we show our users, our customers, like, here is the interface, here's how you interact with it, generally they're able to then get whatever behavior they want, right? If they want it to behave in a certain way, they just tell it, and it hopefully should do it. And if not, we always maintain very open communication channels with them. This is kind of going back to what I was saying about our team composition. Like a lot of
Mm-hmm.
our team have a lot of experience with data science. So if a user has a question, it's not just like we can fix bugs or something. Like if it's like if the service is down or something, obviously we can fix that. But if they have a question like, hey, like I'm trying to do an analysis and there's some subtlety here that I think the model may not be getting, or that I may not be getting, but the model is getting, we can dive in to help them directly, right? So we can help them both with the software, like as a software product, but we can also help them with what they're doing with the AI tool. And I think that's the most valuable thing, because then we can kind of guide them into, how do you prompt it? How do you tweak the model? How do we tweak the model if it's actually just like we've done something wrong? And how do we kind of get to a point where you're getting a good data science outcome together? And we think that support surface and the ability not just to say like, yeah, we have someone on call at all times, but rather if you ask us a question, somebody very talented who knows what you're talking about will actually show up and help you. I think that's a big part of our value add, and we want to maintain that as part of like how we show customers that we value their work.
Definitely. It's something that makes customers more loyal, and they feel this special attention to themselves. They know that they're unique, special, and even though their issues might sound really simple to solve, anyway, the feeling that they're special to you opens all the doors. Yeah, exactly. I also noticed that you also support various integrations like Snowflake, Databricks, Salesforce. How important are these integrations to your adoption strategy right now?
Yeah, I mean, integrations are critical, right? Like everyone's data is somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to access it where it is. Policy on integrations is we support almost everything,
Mm-hmm.
and we support it through access patterns that the customer chooses, right? So if the
Okay.
customer already has, say, data in Databricks or Snowflake or wherever, they obviously have an access pattern that they're using for human access or for their existing machine access, and we just kind of slot right on top of that. So we're able to just very quickly, in a matter of seconds, figure out access to any kind of data source you have. And that lets us be very flexible, right? It gives us two kinds of flexibility. The first is that wherever your data lives, we're able to immediately just adapt to that and work with you in your existing ecosystem. The second is that because we're using connectors that belong to the customer, rather than saying, oh, give us our own special connection to your BigQuery account so I can have access to it, like we don't want that. This also gives them security, right? Like it's going through their systems and it's using their RBAC, their role-based access control, their rules, their controls, their cost controls, right? So they have full control on what Sphinx is doing.
Mm-hmm.
We think that is just like really important from our perspective as a company that wants to sell a trustworthy product. The customer should have complete control on whatever it's doing.
Okay, I got it. That sounds really ridiculous. That's really helpful. And but by the way, just out of curiosity, any other integrations you plan to interact and achieve in the nearest future?
I mean, look, like we will integrate with literally anything a customer
Okay.
wants, and because of our AI guided pattern for integration, it really takes like a few minutes to build an integration.
Oh.
So we're not really like yeah, like look, like we right now we integrate with everything from like Salesforce, BigQuery, Databricks, Snowflake, on-prem databases, right? Postgres, Airtable, you name it, we probably integrate with it. Google Analytics, right? It's like just because it's so fast for us to put in these integrations that the moment a customer wants it, we'll tell them how to do it, and that's it, right? They're off. They're off to the races. We don't want it. We don't ever want it to be like a process where you're waiting on us to just do some reasonably easy work.
Yeah, exactly. I think we can jump in, and it would be really great to more directly to the go-to-market section and precisely AI. When prepping to our podcast, I also read a few articles saying that it was basically a study by including MIT that approximately up to 85 or 95% of AI startups and enterprise AI pilots they fail to deliver meaningful business success. Why do
Yep.
you think that happens?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, outside of a very small set of use cases, most AI applications are built because they're cool, they look
Mm-hmm.
nice, and they're not actually solving any real problem, right? So you bring it in, it looks cool, and then like what's it solving? And it's very unclear to me what a lot of these tools are solving.
Mm-hmm.
I think a simple rule of thumb for me is that if a human was not doing that work before, it probably was not that important anyway.
Definitely.
Like otherwise, like you would have hired someone to do it in the pre-AI era, and then maybe you augment with AI now. But like if no one was doing it, like I don't know, right? And so like that's one kind of basic benchmark, and we see a lot of startups kind of failing that test in my mind, and building things that are almost like more flashy than functional. The other aspect here is that most people who are in an enterprise doing something specific, they're experts, right? They have some expertise in some specific domain. And if you are not going to kind of match that level of expertise, like the AI is going to be worse than the human, in which case, like, yeah, it's faster, but it's worse. So you just throw it out, right? This is kind of why Sphinx focuses on data science specifically, because we think we can deliver in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And when we see companies selling something much more general, or even something like really verticalized that kind of just does like one thing and does it okay, like I'm very skeptical of that. And even in in my past life when I was at a large enterprise, as these like we tested out all these products, I'm not surprised that this 80%, 85% failure rate came out. I'm a little surprised at how long it took for people to realize that it was this bad. But typically, like if you hear like someone is building some AI startup, like the assumption your prior should just be like, yeah, it's just vaporware, right? And it's unfortunate, but that's just like kind of true right now. A lot of it is completely useless.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There were more and more studies and research that are coming right now saying that probably people should be feel comfy about that AI won't be replacing them in the nearest future, as a lot of stuff isn't working as expected. And I guess back in 2024, if I'm correct, people found out that approximately half of the code that's been uploaded on GitHub and also Stack Overflow, it wasn't working properly. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Uh, but how did you approach your own go-to-market at Sphinx? Did you start bottom up with devs or top down with enterprise executives? Or how was it in your case?
Yeah, so we do both motions. We do have a bottoms up, mainly academics, students, junior data scientists who are looking to kind of expand their repertoire of skills. But from the enterprise sales perspective, we do normally start near the top. The reason for that is data is considered a very precious resource by these companies, right? So unlike software, or maybe unlike software 2 years ago, software now is also considered reasonably precious. It's very unlikely that a junior data scientist could just say, hey, I'm going to bring in an AI product that's going to touch our systems and not ask anyone for permission. I'm just going to do it myself. That's not allowed in most companies. So we need to go to the top and then prove to them, and we do prove to the people
Mm-hmm.
this thing, that we are building in a way that is secure, in a way that's compliant, in a way that respects their permission surfaces, in a way that lets them control their data, that doesn't have any retention on our side, right? The whole gamut of enterprise security. So once we've showed that we can be trusted as a partner and that we're a serious company that is building for their scale, we can then proceed to the start to go disseminate the product to the more junior data scientists or to the data teams more generally, and start to collect their feedback and make sure the product's a success for them. But yeah, at the end of the day, there is for the data space a pretty big emphasis on making sure there is buy-in from the top, because without that, some of the security guarantees can't be really in place.
Yeah, I got it. I got it. Well, thanks for this explanation, and we figured out how things does things differently. So here is the provocative question: what mistakes did you see others make when selling AI products that you consciously avoided?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think like the one thing that we've seen as not the best motion is saying, okay, like I want to do this kind of PLG type motion, and obviously PLG motions are great,
Mhm.
right? And in order to drive a PLG motion, I'm going to appeal to the lowest common denominator. I'm going to appeal to people who are like not like, if you're building for domain X, you're not building for practitioners of X, but rather like vibe X, right? Like people don't really know what they're doing, but kind of want to dabble in it. And they're like, oh yeah, like I don't care about quality. I care about speed and flashiness and whatever. And then you get this good kind of PLG cycle going, but it doesn't really necessarily then translate to serious enterprise users, right? Because it's like not high enough quality. In coding, we've seen some people do it really well and build amazing coding tools, and they are building for serious people, and they are themselves very serious software engineers. But we've also seen some tools that are like kind of just bad, right? And they have like a blip of traction and then go away because people who don't know how to code like them, but then people who do code use them are like, oh, I'd rather use, I don't know, like Claude Code because it's better. And then these things just die out, right? So we're very consciously trying to avoid the pattern of like vibe data science, or like, you don't need to know anything. You just ask questions and plots come out. Like, okay, that's fine. But at the end of the day, the people who are, driving billions and billions of dollars in revenue for enterprises do know what they're doing. So you might as well build for them to a level of quality that they can appreciate, rather than going for this lowest common denominator where, like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, they may use your product, but they're not going to actually do anything with it. So, right, like you want to focus on like where can you drive the most impact. That's the biggest one from our perspective. And the other is, of course, just um, we're no longer in the wild west of AI security. Like
Mm-hmm.
most companies have like AI governance board and things like that.
Yeah.
So you can't really just say like, oh, just use the product and like, cross your fingers and hope that it's safe. Like you need to actually be safe, right? You need to like show people very clearly like what the security posturing is, how you make sure that their data and their insights are kept safe, secure to them, and not really like leaking anywhere, right? Because that's happened with even with some of the major AI companies. That has happened,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to make sure that you're able to offer people much more comfort in how you're acting as like a secure partner to them.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Security means a lot to their users, and especially when this is something like new and unknown, because the exaggeration and hype will pass soon enough, but the question about the security and the rest will stay for a while. So even I know it's kind of off topic, but right now the AI browsers are like
Hmm.
on a new wave of hype, and the first thing that I noticed, and actually was also my concern, is the question of safety, because we know when we see that AI is trained and is using data that might be reused later, and this data might be leaked. So yeah, definitely
Yeah,
security is big.
absolutely.
um when it comes to like traditional, let's call them traditional software products, or maybe SaaS solutions, users understand, well, at least not users but people who are selling the service and companies, and maybe even some users, they understand what they are sold and what they are selling, because you have this list of functionality. You at least understand the limits and how much it takes, how much it costs. When it comes to AI, I'm really curious about how does the go-to-market differ from typical SaaS or software products, especially regarding user education and trust. Because in this case, you have to, especially in terms of trust, you have to often maybe promise users something they do not know, or maybe they would be asking for something that yet you do not know, but they're looking for. So how is it in your case?
Yeah, I mean, so I'll be honest with you that I've only been in the AI space for my entire career, right? So I don't,
Okay.
I've been a buyer of normal SaaS products, but never selling them. I've only been in the
Okay.
AI space, and so given that, like even how AI has evolved from I think what I'd call more machine learning style traditional AI to like now generative AI,
Hmm.
um, standards have slackened. I think for the same reason I said before, in that like people are building like quote unquote vibe applications, they shouldn't slacken, right? Like if you're selling someone an
Hmm.
AI product and you're an AI developer, you should know what it does. You should know what its limitations are. You should be able to set up guardrails. If anything, it should be easier for a customer to understand it because they
Hmm.
can interrogate the product in natural language. Like one of the things that Sphinx does is you can set up guardrails on Sphinx in natural language or in code, however you want, and it's like you can help define that surface. But if that surface doesn't exist, I think that's just kind of laziness, to be honest. Like you need to tell your customer like what are you doing? Like, what's the point of this product? And if you don't do that and you just kind of hand wave and say, oh, it can do anything because it's AI, like that's just not true, right? Like, short of you selling AGI, in which case, like, please sell it however you like. Most AI products have a surface that they're good at. They're built for a certain application, and then that application should be something that, at the very minimum, the creators of the product should be able to explain. So with Sphinx, we are able to go to our customers and be quite clear on like, we
Hmm.
help with data science workflows. We help with like in certain verticals, we help with particular data science workflows as examples. And the generalization is that basically anything that your data scientist is doing in, let's say, a Jupyter notebook or other interactive computing platforms is where Sphinx works. And then where Sphinx doesn't work is in like certain other parts of the domain. Like one of the things that we will be quite upfront with is like Sphinx doesn't know your business better than you do, right? So
Hmm.
if you ask Sphinx like, how do I make more money? I mean, it'll say something, right? But it's not going to be as good as you as the domain expert thinking, hey, our customers are churning. We should stop that. And then you go ask Sphinx that data science question. Say, can we make a model to predict why my customers are churning? Then Sphinx will go find the data, build the model, like, and it can do what it's good at, right? So we try to be quite clear on what the interface of our product is. Where do you enter? Where does you exit? And like anything outside of that, I again would put in the AI hype bucket of like just people pretending that AI can do things it can't.
Well, that sounds really helpful. That sounds helpful and definitely makes sense. By the way, also one thing that's also resonates with this question is that in case of Sphinx, what early go-to-market signals help you distinguish genuine product market fit in AI versus innovation theater or pilot purgatory?
Yeah, I mean, really, like for us, the customer feedback is
Uh-huh.
the main thing, right? Like once you get it in someone's hands, like most of our users love it, and that's all we're looking for. Right? Like if people are using the product and liking the product, then even if there are like things they would like change, they will come to us and tell us that, and we'll go
Mm-hmm.
build those for them. Um, it's as simple as that, right? Like, and then if you want me to go even before that, even before like we actually get it in
Mm-hmm.
someone's hands, it's just a belief in the value of data, and I think this is quite common, right? Like, you were citing these MIT studies. I think like a few years ago, there's some Harvard Business School studies which were similar things about data, not about AI, where people said like 80% of CEOs believe that data is a big priority item, but only 20% of CEOs have actually invested in it. So you find these people who like believe in data, uh, have either invested in it already and want to go deeper or have yet to fully invest in it. And because they have that belief already, it's reasonably straightforward to say we will just help you do the thing you already want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's really like the core of our early motion. Like we find people who are going to be like kind of ready-made champions, and then we do our utmost to convince them of our product security, of our company's kind of integrity as like a partner to you. And once we do that, we get the product in people's hands, and then that's really now the easy part, right? Like because I think the product is quite good, and
Mm-hmm.
as people use it, they tend to enjoy it, and we're very very fast about if there's something they don't like, we fix it immediately. So we're very good at iterating with our customers to build something together.
I got it. I got it. Well, partially you will already answered my question. The next question I had in mind, Rohan, is that how do you guys manage and incorporate customer feedback during early go-to-market, especially with
Yeah.
skeptical or technical audiences? Even though you're working with skilled people in the space, still how it is.
Yeah, look, like most of the people we work with, like the users, are extremely talented.
Mm-hmm.
So their feedback is usually very cogent and makes a lot of sense, and we take it and we implement it, right? And like what's nice is that like the way we've set up the product is we have various ways to implement it. They can tweak the product themselves in many ways. There's ways for them to steer Sphinx. There are ways for us to steer Sphinx for them if they
Mm-hmm.
want us to do the work for them. There are ways for us to globally improve Sphinx. And so we do all of the above, right? Based on the feedback. It's like if it's from a specific company, we'll generally use it to improve that company. If it's just kind of like broad user feedback, we might use it to improve the whole system. But we have various places
Mm-hmm.
where human feedback can be incorporated. And all of those places kind of work together to make sure that whenever someone wants something, it happens as quickly as possible. And again, like it comes back to like this is the point of AI, right? Like you're
Yeah.
supposed to be able to configure it in natural language. Okay, like let's deliver on that promise. If a user wants something, like they should ideally be able to self-serve and just get whatever they want.
I got it. I got it. I got it. Thanks for this explanation, clarification. By the way, you also mentioned that often you work with really skilled and talented people, and with people who know what they're doing, whether it's a data analyst or analyst in some tech company. But still, even though AI isn't the wild west that it used to be, go-to-market in AI often involves teaching customers to interpret accuracy, drift, or explainability metrics. So how do you balance educating versus overwhelming buyers?
Yeah, look, like again, like we're working in a very quantitative domain.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we do have to educate people, like, and we do, but sometimes you have to explain, like, what is the model doing behind the scenes? Like, how is it coming up with these results? How do you interrogate it? Like, some people, like, for example, will say, oh, do I actually have to like go, like, so you can see all the code that Syncs writes. So you can go look at the code and say, like, well, do I actually have to read all the code? Is there a faster way? And so we'll say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, you can interrogate it in this way to kind of do it in plain English or do it in kind of a bridge format. And so education is a big part of it, explaining to people how they can inspect our system, how they can introspect what they're getting out of it. Um, I never feel like that overwhelms anyone because they really want to know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're using this for their work, for their companies. So the more we can give them, the better. So I wouldn't say we've really run into this overwhelming risk. If anything,
Mm-hmm.
people just ask us. The feedback is often we want more interpretability, never less.
I got it. I got it. By the way, we discussed it partially earlier that there are some industries that have regulatory compliance, a lot of regulations, etc., etc., when it comes to healthcare, finance, defense, and aerospace. So, how did go-to-market motion and messaging change for AI in highly regulated sectors?
Yeah, basically, like, look, there are standards that some companies need us to meet, and if we can meet them, we will inform them that we've met them. And there are certain industries that, as a we're a seed stage company, we're not yet playing in, mainly from that perspective of like we want to get to a point where we can meet their regulatory restrictions and then
Mm-hmm.
deliver for them. When we can meet those restrictions, I mean, we have a pretty strong team here that thinks about our security, our infosec, our kind of security stance, and so we're able to deliver on that just in the
Okay.
process that they want, right? They'll send us, questionnaires, and we'll kind of go through. We'll do the work, right? We'll do the work of proving to them that we are compliant enough to be their partner. Once you're actually in these industries, we actually treat almost every company as sensitive, right? Like even if you're not in a regulated industry, your data and your data processes are still like considered your IP, right? Like, and you don't want them leaking for no reason, even if there's no legal reason.
Yep.
So we treat all our customers with this level of basically being able to say, we don't retain your information. You keep your information. Things run on your computers. They're on your servers. Your databases are accessed through your database access patterns, not through ours, right? And we guarantee that to everyone. So even if you're in a regulated industry, once we're over the hump of the paperwork and the legal talk, we offer them a very, very compelling package for just how we don't interfere with your process and stay a safe distance away so that you're able to maintain your IP.
I got it. I got it. I guess we'll get back to this question a bit later in terms of like security
Mhm.
and privacy. W- As a as you've been running in this wild space and as you're running Sphinx, what KPIs or go-to-market metrics tend to be misleading in AI sales motions, and what do you look at instead? What's from other companies, from other startups?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I think that certainly like certain usage numbers, kind of harkening back to kind of like the vibe coding thing, like certain usage numbers are not necessarily reflective of how well the product will land in an enterprise or with serious users, right? Like, for example, if you have a bunch of students, just use it. Like, it's free for them. Like, yeah, it's like the barrier to entry is so low. Like, why wouldn't they use it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's not necessarily a sign that your go to market is working, right? And like we try to be careful about over indexing on like, oh, like we had like X hundred signups today. Like that's great. Like we're happy that happens, but we then need to do the work to actually say, okay, these people should be like long-lived customers who keep using the product and stay there for a long time. We can't just be like, oh, there are a lot of accounts, right? Like who cares? So
Yeah.
it's really that. I think you have to actually monitor usage, like sustained, useful application of the AI product, and getting people on board. I think is still kind of like easy in some sense because AI is flashy, AI is cool, people are willing to try it. For us, obviously, like when we're doing enterprise work, it's not like people will just sign up for a pilot just because it's fun. They'll want to do diligence first. But we do have a little bit of a better signal there. But we do generally want to be careful about not just misinterpreting like free tier usage as like a
Mm-hmm.
signal for the product actually being useful, because that just could be a signal of people being curious, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally, exactly. And oops, my bad. This is my dog. Just a moment.
Yes, first.
Togo, nie wolno. Nie wolno. Yeah, my bad. My wife coming home, so he's starting. Oh, not again, not again. I do hope he does it interpret response again. What is Sphinx process for gathering market evidence that you're really solving a painkiller, not just selling an interest AI product that we've been discussing during our conversation?
Yeah, again, it's usage, right? Like if we see that people are using it every day, multiple hours a day, we believe we're actually solving a pain point for them. And then we also ask our users, right? We are
Okay.
very aggressive about calling them up, getting feedback, and saying like, okay, like, is it like a curiosity? Is it just like for
Mm-hmm.
fun? Are you actually using it for your processes? And it's as simple as that, right? Like if people use it a lot, it's useful. If people are not using it a lot, it's not useful. And that's kind of how we guide. And like certainly like there's a spectrum. Like there's some users who love it and are using it like all day, and there are some users who don't like it, and then we want to go to them and say like, what are we not doing for you? Like, why can't you use it all the time? Like, what can we improve? And that's really our metric for like, are we actually killing a pain point for you,
Mm-hmm.
or is it like one more of like the various AI things that you don't really care about?
I got it. I got it. Well, Definitely makes sense. As I guess in terms of go to market and etc., the final question is if an AI product flops in the market, what it might sound harsh, but anyway, what post mortem questions do you ask about go to market versus the technology of the market itself?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. To be honest, like I think my prior would almost certainly be its technology because most AI products are just kind of like I apologize for using the term, just like wrappers, and like they just don't really do very much. Right. So that would be my first guess, and especially like if there isn't something that they're doing that is like interesting on top of the technology, then
Hmm.
like that would I guess as to why it doesn't work. Beyond that, I think the go-to-market motion, a lot of it today, especially if you can get a kind of PLG-led motion, a lot of it is dominated by social attention, by kind of playing the game of
Hmm.
getting a lot of eyes on your product. And so, if a company doesn't do that, especially if they're in a more in a space that's a little bit more amenable to B2C or B2 developer kind of regimes, then that is another area to diagnose.
Hmm.
I think were they able to actually drum up enough attention? But right at the end of the day, I do think product quality still will like win out. If a product is low quality, it'll certainly fail. Especially when other people can go build the same product very quickly now, right? Like if you're, it's very easy to build low quality products these days with vibe coding. So I would say like it's almost certainly going to be a product quality issue. And then like
Hmm.
the go to market, maybe like you don't grow as fast as
Hmm.
like some of these like super growth stories. But generally, like the way I is working right now is people are giving out money. People are having huge funding rounds. If you're judicious with that and you're like, okay, like now we have a lot of runway, like we have a lot of runway at Sphinx now,
Hmm.
like thankfully, right? And so because we have that runway, we can make sure we build a really high quality product and we iterate on the go to market motion. And so like if you kind of have that opportunity and then it still doesn't you don't really it doesn't work at all and you're not able to pivot the product in the right direction, my assumption would be that the technology is at fault.
So it's always quality and speed, but quality is the most important.
Exactly, right. People like speed is good, like it's great, but like quality people will notice, and you can't really trick people, right? You need to actually give them something that makes their life better.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Rather than having a speed response, it is better to have an accurate response regarding what
Yeah,
it does and
absolutely.
what data do you have at the end of the day. As I mentioned earlier, I would love to get back partially to data and privacy. And as I understand, Sphinx runs locally in clients' environments, correct?
So Sphinx runs as kind of a two-part solution. We have
Okay.
some stuff that runs locally.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's maintaining state effectively, touching the databases, running code, all of that we ship to the client, and so it
Mm-hmm.
runs there.
Okay.
And what we run on our side is an inference server. So the
Mm-hmm.
inference server is running our model, and as I described, like the model that can understand data natively, et cetera. Right. So we run that on our side, like that's our IP. And because we're only running inference, what we can offer customers is that we're completely ephemeral, right? So your state machine, which is running on your side, makes some request to our server. Our server says, oh, the next best step to do this data analysis is to go pull this table or to go do this analysis or whatever it might be. It comes back, and then your client is the client's software is responsible for implementing that. So that's happening on their side. And then because we're just kind of making these ephemeral inferences, we don't need to keep anything.
Mm-hmm.
So the data comes in, inference is run, and then everything's thrown out. This is kind of like the ZDR concept that I think OpenAI and Anthropic and others are kind of pushing as well, and we think that's really critical, right? Because that means
Okay.
that it's not even possible, right? Regardless of what I say in a contract, it's not possible for me to train on someone's data or look at their data.
Mm-hmm.
It's all completely on their side, at least at rest. So we're that's kind of how we set up our architecture, so that we are clear to our customers technologically and contractually that we don't keep or have any of their data, and therefore any risks that arise from that don't even exist.
I got it. So basically, it answers the question about Sphinx philosophy on data privacy and ownership. That's really
Yeah,
great.
look, it's owned by our customers, right? Like we don't want to own it. Like it belongs to them.
Yeah, yeah. I think this is really an important statement and important thing is, yeah, as we discussed almost at the beginning, every company is willing to, especially enterprise level companies, they want to keep their data as private as possible and not to be leaked somewhere around the internet or whatever the place it is. When also it comes to enterprise customers, how do you handle security audits or maybe compliance requirements? When it comes to requirements, compliance, you partially answered it already. But what about the security? Are there any security
Yeah,
audits?
look, like it varies from customer to customer. Like there are
Okay.
standard things like SOC 2 that we do. Like we do the standard kind of work to ensure our security and compliance posture is in line with what people
Mm-hmm.
expect. Most customers, like especially the bigger ones, will have some kind of custom security survey that they'll send
Mm-hmm.
us. They'll say, do you have X, Y, and Z? And we will make sure that we do, right? So again, we have a large part of our engineering effort, or our team's time is actually on security, right? We know it's important. And so our team will go through those surveys, make
Mm-hmm.
sure that we can answer all the questions appropriately. And if there's a gap, we will try to fill it. Um, at the end of the day, a lot of this is just kind of doing the labor.
Mm-hmm.
It's much easier to be like, I have a SaaS product and I just sell the same thing to everyone. If you need to like run things, in a single tenant deployment, or you need to set up private links for people, like it just work. We'll just do it. It's as simple as that, right? Like if customers come to us with security requirements, we'll just put in the legwork to make sure they're met.
Okay. Okay. That's as possible. By the way, how do you reconcile model predictability and transparency with privacy constraints in this case?
Yeah. So everything we do is reproducible by the customer. So it's not
Uh-huh.
reproducible by me because I have no idea what the customer is doing because we're throwing out that data. But on the other hand, we tell the customer everything we're doing. Like, they're paying for the service. We're not going to hide anything from them. So if the customer wants to replicate the result, they can do it. I can't do it. Right. So like we basically push that service to them. The idea here is like, yeah, it makes our research a little bit harder because I can't verify things without customers like confirming it to me. But the real point of the interpretability and the reproducibility is so the customer can have comfort and they can audit what we're doing with them. So they're fully able to do it. So it's kind of like a one-way street, right? Like information goes to them, we don't keep it.
I got it. I got it. Well, we're heading to the end of our podcast, and there are just a number of questions I wanted to ask. Uh, with this awesome journey that you had, because Sphinx has been working since May 2025, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
right?
yeah, we're a very new company. I started in June of this year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Looking back, what was the hardest trade-off you made between research depth and maybe commercial traction? Was there anything?
It's a good question. I mean, I think like when you think about agents and you think
Mm-hmm.
about how agents are discussed in the academic research,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain constraints that just don't matter. Oh, the
Okay.
obvious one is speed. So if I took Sphinx and I said, you know what, like I'm not going to care about speed. I'm just going to run the agent for like 6 hours on the simplest question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be right on everything, right? Like because it's like I'm solving an easy question like with so much firepower. And if you go down the pure research path, you'll find really awesome ways to improve the agent that just cost a lot in terms of time budget. Realistically, like, look, we're shipping this to humans who want things fast and want things to work on their time scale. So there are certain features that we do not ship, or only ship in kind of like a headless sense of like it's not when it's collaborating with a human, but when the human is fully delegated to them. And that does obviously make the model quality a little bit lower. But we want to give people that knob, right? So if you want it to run longer, you can enable that kind of behavior. But that said, like we're not necessarily going to just like only optimize for accuracy or only optimize for the kind of result you'd get. Like back in academia, like when you want to publish a paper, you only care about some metric. We have to be a little bit more holistic. And anytime you're holistic, like even if you're optimizing two metrics instead of one, it obviously now becomes like an unscientific trade-off, and you have to do it based on market feedback and your own kind of instinct. That's the hardest thing for me, right? Like coming from a research background, like we have to make sure that we don't just say like, oh, here's the research target, let's just like accomplish it. But rather, here's the research target, but here's what our users care about, which are kind of qualitative things that are on the side, and we have to balance them all. So at the end of the day, like the company when we started in June, the first few months were just pure research, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we wanted to build a data science agent that was better than what OpenAI's models can do on data, what Anthropic's models can do on data, what Google's models could do on data, and we built that, right? And once we built that, we were able to go fundraise with that, like the strength of the research result behind us. But it's not like we then shipped that research result, right? We had to build a real product around it. And as soon as that happened, we started to make trade-offs. And I think that's the right decision to make because at the end of the day, your customers being happy is the most important thing. It's not that you have like a cool benchmark number or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. A happy customer is the loyal customer and
Exactly. Yep.
the one who brings you revenue and money, of course.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I know that you worked, and you mentioned it, that you worked a lot with AI, Rohan. So what I wanted to ask is that if you noticed, how has the perception of AI copilots changed among your users and in general, maybe users from the previous companies that you worked with in the past, maybe not year, but in the past months, in the past weeks?
Past week. So that's a very fast timeline. I mean,
Yeah,
certainly like over a longer timeline, I think the hype about copilots has gone down quite a bit. Like
yeah.
people are realizing that they're not that good at certain things and that you need to kind of babysit them. Over the last few weeks, I mean, that's like obviously a very fast time frame, but I
Mm-hmm,
think something we are largely seeing is that you are getting a bit of a plateau
mm-hmm.
with models. Like if you think of like GPT-5 versus GPT-4.1, like was it even better? I honestly don't think it was that much better. And then like you see like the new Claude release, Claude 4.5,
Mm-hmm.
where of course they've made incremental improvements, but like we're not really reaching like, oh, we're like 93% on Sweetbench to
Yeah.
95% on Sweetbench, right? So I think the kind of era of people just being like, I'm going to expect my tools to get much better tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
is, I don't know if it's drawing to a close, but it's certainly slowing down. And I think that just gives people a lot more skepticism. And so that's really the dominant feeling we see. It's bad for us in that like, people aren't just like, oh, a Copilot, great, let's do it. But it's good for us in that if you are able to actually do a good job, you become a lot more sticky, right? Because there's no
Yeah.
longer this perception of like, oh, like, some random thing will come and just be better tomorrow. People are realizing that building good Copilots is actually hard work and you need to know what you're doing, and that we're starting to reach the point of like maturity of these products to some degree.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. I totally agree with you about that. And I know the next question would be kind of like general, but still, I'm really curious to hear your perspective on that. And what do you see is the next frontier for your technology? For your technology, I mean, like AI in general, deeper reasoning, better generalization, maybe something else.
Yeah. So I mean, I think my answer here is that if you think about where AI has been generalizing, it's in like getting smarter, it's in thinking deeper, thinking longer.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it's not been generalizing is what I'd call like modalities, right? AI still basically understands two things well. It understands like language, understands pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Even for something like audio, like you're seeing companies like 11 Labs and like that are like competing and potentially beating the OpenAI Anthropic style giants, right? So clearly, like even something as simple as audio is not yet fully understood. Now, if you're a human, if you're like an intelligent human, you not only have a lot of different modalities to reason over, you also can learn new modalities quite quickly. Like if I, give you some kind of like tactile object, you can use that tactile object to gain information, right? So there are all kinds of different ways in which humans build new modalities, new ways of understanding information. AI doesn't really do that. I think that's kind of the next big leap in that,
Mm-hmm.
like even for us, right? Like we're extending AI to understand data as a modality. What would be really amazing and what I think would be an amazing breakthrough, it would be bad for us, but would be an amazing breakthrough for the world, is if someone said, here's an AI that you give it any modality and it generalizes immediately. You give it data, okay, it knows how to do data after a few examples. You give it like, you give it sound, you give it smells, you give it touch, it just can learn over those modalities immediately, right? It would be bad for us as a company, but certainly I think that's kind of the level of innovation we need. We need to generalize on a new axis, right? Because we've squeezed a lot of juice out of the like, oh, I'm even smarter at understanding text axis already.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I partially agree with you about it, and definitely sounds helpful. For as much as I'd love to see Sphinx successful, I also would love to see AI that's more powerful and helpful day-to-day routine and some goals. So let's hope there is some kind of like
Absolutely.
win-win for for both of us. Then finally, what advice would you give to founders trying to commercialize complex AI tech today?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously we're early on this journey, so I'm not sure how qualified we are to give advice to anyone, but really like the thing that seems to be working for us is just very close collaboration with one, customers,
Mm-hmm.
and two, having experts on your side. If you're building AI technology, you should probably hire your ideal user to work at your company and help you build the tool. Building software is now easy. I'm not going to say it's commoditized, but it's like definitely easier than before. Having domain expertise is not easy, right? And so if you are building a complex AI product, the buyer, you should have an example of the buyer working with you, like the best example of the buyer, the most talented one, and they should be able to help you build the product really well. And then you can go and engage with customers more directly. At least that's our philosophy, and it seems to be doing fine so far.
I got it. I got it. Thanks for this podcast. I do appreciate your insights and all the information you provided me and our viewers. Hopefully, it's been a pleasure, Rohan. Let's keep in touch and talk soon. And once again, we were discussing why AI products don't sell without proper go to market. So let's keep in touch and stay tuned.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.